Hey, good morning. We're going to talk through some of Beowulf today. Last week, I had you watch some other people read the different sections, the section where you met Beowulf, and he kind of told some tales of what qualifies him as a hero. And then he had Hrothgar's right hand man, Unferth, who was very jealous of Beowulf, and he questioned whether or not Beowulf was really the hero that he says that he was. And so Beowulf went into this big boast um, about the things that he had done. And Unferth's like, I heard that you and your buddy, you went on this swimming contest and he beat you. And so Beowulf had to kind of prove to him, well, he beat me, but that's because I had to go and fight 9 sea monsters and I killed all of them. And then I caught up with him. So he does all that to let us know that he is the hero that is got superhuman strength and that he's the only one that will be able to fight Grendel. Then you figure out that Grendel fights hand to hand. And so Beowulf displays honor and chivalry in battle because he says, well, if he doesn't use any weapons, then I'm not going to use any weapons. This is not only because he has superhuman strength and he's sure of himself. He's sure of whether or not he can beat Grendel, but more so that he believes in fate. So there's this whole thing of those pagan beliefs, and he believes that fate will decide, and he feels like God is on his side and God will favor him, and therefore he'll win the battle. So he lays down and waits for Grendel to attack. Grendel comes like he always comes, and he meets Beowulf, and Beowulf is stronger than Grendel has a stronger man than Grendel has ever met. And so Beowulf does not slay him. He doesn't have any kind of weapon to slay him with, but he does rip his arm from his shoulder. And so it talks right here, about the trophy that they have after Grendel leaves. Sorry, is the trophy is Grendel's arm, and they hang it up from the rafters in Harrod, the hall, as like a display trophy of them succeeding in defeating Grendel. So they think all is well. All right, that's where we are today. They think everything's great, that this curse has been lifted, that Hrothgar and his people are going to be safe now, that they can go back to being this mighty kingdom who wins victories and celebrates and drinks and is merry and all that stuff. Well, that's where we're starting. And I'm going to kind of read some, and I'm also going to skip some so that you can get to the good parts and we don't have to read all of the parts. If we were in class, it would be easier because we could talk through them. But since we are doing it this way, I'm going to skip through. So from line 836, that's whenever Beowulf has Grendel's arm in his awesome grasp. And I've taken some notes here, so sorry if I'm going back and forth. So this part is whenever they wake up the next morning, and Grendel, he runs away to his lair. Okay, so like his monster home cave, and we find out what's happened the next morning. So the morning came, and many a warrior gathered around the gift hall. They're flocking from near and far to look at the monster's footsteps. It says his fatal departure was regretted by no one who witnessed the trail. So they realize that he has ran away, but they see that he was beaten in battle, bloodying the path, hauling his doom to the demon's mare. The bloodshot water wallowed and surged. There was loathsome upthrows and upturnings of waves and gore and wood slurry. So they have followed Grendel's trail to the lake. And it says the bloodshot water, it's bubbling and it's bloody. All right. With his death upon him, he had dived deep into his marsh den, drowned out his life, and his heathen soul. Hell claimed him there. So we think that he's jumped into the lake and he's gone to his death. Okay. So then away they ride back to Harrod, and they come back and they're joyous and they're celebrating and they're like, Beowulf has done it. He's killed Grendel. So the men they start to tell the tales of these great warriors, and they talk about, so one of the things that the Scops, the poets, the oral speakers who entertain during this time period, one of the things that they do is they sing songs about brave warriors. And so they're talking about that. And we're going to skip through this whole um, poem that they're singing right here, this song. Okay. And it says, meanwhile, the Danes kept racing their mounts down sandy lanes. They are getting ready for the party of all parties. Okay. So the king himself, guardian of the ring hoard, goodness in person, walked in majesty from the women's quarters with a numerous train, attended by his queen and her crowd of maidens across to the mead hall. When Hrothgar arrived, he spoke, standing on the steps under the steep eaves, gazing at the roof work and Grendel's talon. First and foremost, let the Almighty Father be thanked for this sight. I have suffered a long harrowing by Grendel, but the heavenly shepherd can work his wonders always and everywhere. So he goes on to thank the Lord for protecting them and for sending Beowulf to help slay the monster. Um, and he says, right here, he says, so now, Beowulf, I adopt you in my heart as a dear son. Now, remember, I don't know if you've paid attention, but he doesn't have any other son. He has his wife has two sons, but in the movie it says that they're not his sons. In the It's been a while since I read that part in the book, but Wealthia will talk about her sons later. But he adopts Beowulf as a son, and that's really important for later. Okay. Nourish and maintain this new connection, you noblest of men. There is nothing you'll want for, no worldly goods that won't be yours. I have often honored smaller achievements, recognized warriors not nearly as worthy, lavished rewards on the less deserving. But you have made yourself immortal by your glorious action. May the God of ages continue to keep and requite you well. All right. So he's like, thank you. You are now my son. I am so gracious and grateful for the thing that you did for me, that you slayed this terrible monster and removed the curse from us. I will give you anything. And so Beowulf speaks back to him and he says, let me just scroll up a little bit. We have gone through a glorious endeavor and been much favored in this fight. So we talk about fate. And I remember I told you that he felt like God favored him. And so that's how he felt like he would win against Grendel. We dared against the unknown. Nevertheless, if you could have seen the monster himself where he lay beaten, I would have been better pleased. My plan was to pounce, pin him down in a tight grip, and grapple him to death. Having panting for breath, powerless and clasped in my bare hands, his body in thrall. But I couldn't stop him from slipping my hold. The Lord allowed it. My lock on him wasn't strong enough. He struggled fiercely, and he broke and he ran. Yet he bought his freedom at a high price, for he left his hand and arm and shoulder to show he had been here, a cold comfort for having come among us. And now he won't be long for this world. He's saying he has this wound that's like a fatal wound. It's gonna kill him. He said, I didn't actually kill him, but the wound that I caused to him is gonna kill him. So that's what that is. And he says he must await the mighty judgment of God in majesty. So this is back to like Grendel is cursed and Beowulf and Hrothgar are supposed to be blessed by God. All right. So at that time, they all are, I just want to kind of skip over this. But Unferth, I haven't really pointed out to you. Remember I mentioned Unferth, who is Hrothgar's side. He's like his advisor. Unferth doesn't like Beowulf because he gets all this lavish attention from Hrothgar. And now Hrothgar has said, Beowulf is my son. Well, Unferth has been working for him forever, and he's never had that kind of recognition, but he's not as brave. He's not as strong. And so he's really jealous of Beowulf at this point. He had been before, but Beowulf against Grendel, his actions with fighting Grendel have proven to Unferth that Beowulf might be worthy. Even though he's really jealous in his heart, Beowulf has proven himself to be the warrior that he said he was. So Unferth comes forward and let me see. Unferth the boaster. There was less tampering and big talk then from Unferth the boaster, so he has less to say. That's what I was trying to tell you. He realizes that Beowulf can walk the walk, not just talk the talk. I know that's cliche. All right, so the order was given for all hands to help refurbish Harrod. Remember, that's the mead hall. So they go about cleaning everything up, reestablishing everything in the hall, mending everything that's broken, setting everything right. Carpenters come in and fix everything back up because they're going to have like the party of all parties. For 12 years now, they have been fighting Grendel every single night. Men have been slayed. Their spirits were really poor. They really felt like they were burdened with this curse, and now it's been lifted. So you can imagine the kind of party that they're ready to have. Okay, so they get it all fixed up. That's what that all says. And then Hrothgar comes down to sit at the feast. No group ever gathered in greater numbers or better order around their ring giver, their king. The benches filled with famous men who fell to with relish. So they started eating, drinking, having a grand time. All right, they were in high spirits. Inside Herod, there was nothing but friendship. The shielding nation was not yet familiar with feud and betrayal. All right. And so then Hrothgar, that's Halfdane's son, presented Beowulf with a gold standard as a victory gift, an embroidered banner, also breastmail and helmet, a sword carried high. So he goes on and he gives him all of these gifts. He gives Beowulf gifts. He lavishes him with all of these riches. Because remember that Hrothgar and his kingdom are very wealthy. So he gives him gold, he gives him rings, he gives him more armor, he gives him horses. And he not only does it for Beowulf, but he also does it for the men that came to fight with Beowulf. So he's very honorable too. He keeps his word and he says, you did this great deed for me, so now I want to repay you. So they're great friends now. Everything's good. I'm skipping on. All right, and we're going to skip this part too. Again, this is another Scop who is trying to entertain them at the feast. And so we're going to skip all this, and you're going to stay with me. We'll get there. Okay, the poem's over. See? All right, and so at this point, Wealthio, who is Hrothgar's queen, she comes forward, and she wants to thank Beowulf too. All right, so she's had to live with the terror just like Hrothgar and just like the people in the kingdom. She comes forth to give her thanks to Beowulf. All right. All right, so she spoke. Enjoy this drink, my most great, generous lord. Raise up your goblet, entertain the gates duly and gently, discourse with them, be open handed, happy and fond, relish their company, but recollect as well all of the boons that have been bestowed on you. The bright court of Herod has been cleansed, and now the word is that you want to adopt this warrior as a son. She's talking to Hrothgar. So, while you may bask in your fortune and then bequeath kingdom and nation to your kith and kin before you decease, I am certain of Rothof. He is noble and will use the young ones well. He will not let you down. Should you die before him, he will treat our children truly and fairly. He will honor, I'm sure, our two sons, repay them in kind when he recollects all the good things we gave him once, the favor and respect he found in his childhood. She turned to the bench where her boys sat. Okay, so let me go down. All right. And then she looks at Beowulf, who is sat between the brothers. The cup was carried to him, kind words spoken in welcome, and a wealth of wrought gold graciously bestowed. To arm bangles, she gives him more things. A mail shirt and rings, the most resplendent torque of gold I've ever heard tell of anywhere on earth and under heaven. There was no hoard like that since Hama snatched the Brosing's neck chain and bore it away with its gems and settings to his shining. So she's talking about like she's never seen so many nice gifts bestowed upon a hero since this other dude. This is this person, okay? Um, okay. And she talks about where the things came from. She says, Hygelac wore this, and this is what happened to him, but this is where these things come from and why you should feel honored for receiving these gifts. All right, so then she's done. Applause fills the hall. She pronounces in the presence of the company, "Take delight in this torque, dear Beowulf. Wear it for luck, and also wear this mail from our people's armory. May you prosper in them. Be acclaimed for strength, for kindly guidance to these two boys, and your bounty will be sure." So she's saying, will you please watch over my sons? If Hrothgar is to die, then I need you to ensure that my sons are protected. All right. So she says, I wish you a lifetime of luck and blessings to enjoy this treasure. Treat my sons with tender care. Be strong and kind. Here, each comrade is friend, is true to the other, loyal to the Lord, loving in spirit. The thanes have one purpose. The people are ready. Having drunk and pledged, the ranks do as I bid. All right. So she's saying these people are loyal. They're loyal to Hrothgar. They're actually loyal to me as well. And they'll be loyal to you, Beowulf. She moved to her place. The men were drinking wine. How could they know? This is really important. This is when things shift. Okay, so they have had the best evening. They're all drunk. Their bellies are full. They've celebrated the success of Beowulf and his men. They've celebrated the death of Grendel, and little do they know. ... All right, this is what happens. How could they know fate, the grim shape of things to come, the threat looming over many things as night approached and King Hrothgar prepared to retire to his quarters? Retainers in great number, this is like warriors, were posted on guard as so often in the past. So they're used to guarding the Great Hall and the people that slept there, so they continue to do it even though Grendel's gone. Benches were pushed back, bedding, gear, and bolsters spread across the floor, and one man lay down to his rest, already marked for death. At their heads, they placed their polished timber battle shields, and on the bench above them, each man's kit was kept at hand. So his kit was his war gear. Every warrior slept with his war gear with him, with his shield, with his armor, his chainmail, with his sword. They were always ready to battle because you never knew when somebody was going to attack. Okay, so a towering war helmet, webbed mail shirt, and great shafted spear. It was their habit, always and everywhere, to be ready for action, at home or in the camp, in whatever case and at whatever time the need arose, to rally round their lord. They were a right people. They went to sleep, and one paid dearly for his night's ease, as had happened to them often, ever since Grendel occupied the Gold Hall, committing evil until the end came, death after his crimes. Then it became clear, obvious to everyone once the fight was over, that an avenger lurked and was still alive, grimly biding time. Okay, so Grendel's dead, but they did not know that Grendel's mama would come to avenge her son's death. Okay, so Grendel's mother, monstrous Helbrad. At this point, you're going to get a lot of imagery about Grendel's mother, and I know you're going to have a question about that, so pay attention to this part. Grendel's mother, monstrous Helbrad, brooded on her wrongs. Her wrongs is them killing her son. She had been forced down into fearful waters, the cold depths, after Cain had killed his father's son, felled his own brother with the sword. Branded an outlaw, marked by having murdered, he moved into the wilds, shunned company and joy. And from Cain, so like as a descendant, there sprang misbegotten spirits, among them Grendel, the banished and accursed, due to come to grips with that watcher inherit, waiting to do battle. Okay, so basically this is just saying that she also is a descendant of Cain, who was cursed by God. And so she was also cursed, just like her son Grendel. She was banished from society, banished from people, banished from happiness. And now Beowulf and his men have taken the one thing that made her happy, her son. Okay, sorry. The monster wrenched. Wait, I missed it. No, I'm good. The monster wrenched and wrestled with him, but Beowulf was mindful of his mighty strength, the wondrous gifts God had showered on him. He relied for help. This is talking about Grendel. On the Lord of all, on his care and his favor. So he overcame the foe, Grendel, brought down the hell brute, broken and bowed, outcast from all sweetness, the enemy of mankind, Grendel, made for his death den. But now his mother had sallied forth on a savage journey, grief-racked and ravenous. desperate for revenge. So she is coming to fight these dudes who killed her baby monster. She came to Harrod. There, inside the hall, Danes lay asleep, earls who would soon endure a great reversal once Grendel's mother attacked and entered. Her onslaught was less only by as much as an Amazon warrior strength. Again, we're talking about descriptions of her. She had an Amazon warrior strength. Is less than an armed man's when the hefted sword, its hammered edge and gleaming blade slathered in blood, raises the sturdy boar ridge off a helmet. So it's saying that she has just as much strength. Hold on. Just as much as an Amazon warrior strength is less than an armed man. So she's got more strength than a regular person. Um, she might not be able to fight off a sword, but she's more powerful than a regular man. Okay. Then in the hall, hard-honed swords were grabbed from the bench, many a broad shield lifted and braced. There was little thought of helmets or woven mail when they woke in terror, so they had to get up quick, grab their swords. The Helldam, that was her, was in panic, desperate to get out, in mortal terror the moment she was found. So she had snuck in and she was going to attack quietly, but then they woke up and realized she was there, and they all started to go after her, and she freaked out. All right, so she had pounced and taken one of the retainers in a tight hold, then headed for the fen. To Hrothgar, this man was the most beloved of the friends he trusted between the two seas. She had done away with a great warrior, ambushed him at rest. So she happened to pick up Hrothgar's favorite friend, his favorite warrior, his best warrior, other than Beowulf, but like his most trusted friend. All right, Beowulf was not in the hall. Beowulf was elsewhere. Earlier, after the award of the treasure, the gate had been given another lodging. So he's not sleeping in the hall with all the men. He actually was off with a female. So there was an uproar in Harrod. She had snatched their trophy. So not only did she steal Hrothgar's favorite man, she also took Grendel's arm back. She had snatched their trophy, Grendel's bloodied hand. It was a fresh blow to the afflicted bone. The bargain was hard, both parties having to pay with the friends of their lives of their friends. And the old lord, the gray-haired warrior, was heartsore and weary when he heard the news. His highest paid advisor, his dearest companion, was dead and gone. The gray-haired warrior, that's Hrothgar. So he's really, really upset when he realizes that his friend is dead and gone. All right, Beowulf was quickly brought to the chamber. The winner of fights, the arch warrior, came first footing in with his fellow troops to where the king in his wisdom waited, still wondering whether Almighty God would ever turn the tide of his misfortune. So he's still like wondering why God hasn't shown favor on him. Like, yeah, he's protected him, but he keeps letting these things happen to him. So that's what that's saying. All right, so Beowulf entered with his band in attendance, and the wooden floorboards banged and rang as he advanced, hurrying to address the king of the Ingwins, asking if he had rested since the urgent summons had come as a surprise. When Hrothgar, the Shielding's helmet, spoke, "Rest? What is rest? Sorrow has returned. Alas for the Danes! Asher is dead. He was, I cannot say that name, Yarmenlaf's elder brother and a soulmate to me, a true mentor, my right-hand man, when the ranks clashed and our boar crest had to take a battering in the line of action. Asher was everything the world admires in a wise man and friend. Then this roaming killer came in a fury and slaughtered him in Harrod. Where she is hiding, glutting on the corpse and glorying in her escape, I cannot tell. She has taken up the feud because of last night when you killed Grendel, wrestled and racked him in ruinous combat, since for too long he had terrorized us with his trepidations. He died in battle, paid with his life, and now this powerful other one arrives, this force for evil, driven to avenge her kinsman's death. Or so it seems to thanes in their grief, in the anguish everything endures at the loss of a ring-giver, now that the hand that bestowed so richly has been stilled in death." So, what did that just say? Well, Hrothgar is going on and on about how Asher, his friend, has died, and it's all because Beowulf killed Grendel, and now he has caused the wrath of Grendel's mama to come, and taken Asher, the best warrior. And so he's talking with grief. Okay, let's see. I'm going to skip some. All right, so he says, I hear from the people that were in the hall that she looked like a woman. The other warped in, so she looked like a woman. All right, the other, this was Grendel, moves beyond the pale, bigger than any man, unnatural birth called Grendel by the country people in former days. Okay, they are fatherless creatures, and their whole ancestry is hidden in a past of demons and ghosts. They dwell apart among wolves on the hills, on windswept crags and treacherous caches, where cold streams pour down the mountain and disappear under mist and moorland. So he's saying, according to the myths, according to folklore, this is where I think that you're going to be able to find Grendel's mother. Okay, I'm going to have to drink because this is a lot. All right. Okay, so we're at line 1361, and they're going to go looking. They're going to figure out where Grendel's mother is. All right, a few miles from here, a frost-stiffened wood waits and keeps watch above a mere. The overhanging bank is a maze of tree roots mirrored in its surface. At night there, something uncanny happens. Uncanny means like really strange. Sorry, I lost my place. The water burns, and the mere bottom has never been sounded by the sons of men. So nobody's ever been to the bottom of the lake. On its bank, the heather stepper halts. The hart in flight from pursuing hounds will turn to face them with firm set horns and die in the wood rather than dive beneath the surface. Nobody wants to dive into the lake. They're terrified. They would rather die, against some big predator than dive into that water. That is no good place. All right. When wind blows up and stormy weather makes clouds scud and the skies weep, out of its depths, a dirty surge is pitched towards the heavens. So, like a big explosion of water. Now, help depends again on you and you alone. So, he's saying, you are the only one that can fix this. Again, I'm going to need you to go find Grendel's mother, and take care of this because I am so tired of this curse and I need you to do this for me. So, Beowulf says, calm down. Why, sir, do not grieve. It is always better to avenge dear ones than to indulge in mourning. So it's better to fight than to cry. For every one of us living in this world means waiting for our end. Let whoever can win glory before death. Let whoever can win glory before death. When a warrior is gone, it will be his best and only bulwark. So arise, my lord, and let us immediately set forth on the trail of this troll dam, Grendel's mother. I guarantee you, she will not get away, not to the dens underground, nor upland groves, nor the ocean floor. She'll have nowhere to flee. Endure your troubles today. Bear up and be the man I expect you to be. He's saying, man up. Like, stop crying. We're going to take care of this. Okay. So he's like, okay, I got this. I'm going to go and prepare. I'm going to grab what I need, and we're going to go find this monster. Find this woman. All right. So I'm skipping ahead. So they ride out to the cliff. They ride out to where the lake is. It says everybody gazed at the hot gore, kept wallowing up, and an urgent war horn repeated its notes. The whole party sat down to watch. The water was infested with all kinds of reptiles. There were writhing sea dragons and monsters slouching on slopes by the cliff, serpents and wild things such as those that often surface at dawn to roam the sail road, that's the ocean, and doom the voyage. Down they plunged, lashing in anger as at the loud call of the battle bugle. Okay, so there's all these like reptile fish things that are swimming and swimming through this lake, and it's like you can see their tails going up through the water as they dive down, and their tails whip up, and they just look terrifying. And then the water is also almost boiling, and it's got like this red glow to it. I mean, it looks scary as I'll get out. Okay, so Beowulf, he's like, I'm gonna do this. I've got this. God's on my side. So Beowulf got ready, donned his war gear, indifferent to death, his mighty hand-forged, fine-webbed mail, so his armor, his chain of armor, or coat of armor, would soon meet with the menace underwater. It would keep the bone cage of his body safe. No enemy's clasp could crush him in it. No vicious arm lock could choke his life out. To guard his head, he had a glittering helmet that was due to be muddied on the mere bottom and blurred in the upswirl. So once he knew that, like, his hat was shiny, but once he dove in, it was going to get gross looking. That's all that says. It was of beaten gold, princely headgear, hooped and hasped by a weaponsmith who had worked wonders in days gone by, and adorn it with boar shapes. Since then, it had resisted every sword. Okay, so he has the best armor that you can have. And then another item that was lent to him by Unferth, the guy that used to be jealous of him, but he'd kind of won his respect. Unferth gave him a sword. He's like, "Here, Beowulf, I want to give you my sword out of respect and gratitude for what you did for us." Okay, so this sword, back then, they named their swords. Some of you may have guns, or your family members have guns, and like they named their guns. It's the same kind of thing. So they would name their swords. And Unferth's sword was named Thrunting. Okay. And so, okay. He gave him a hilted weapon, a rare and ancient sword named Thrunting. The iron blade, with its ill-boding patterns, had been tempered in blood. It had never failed the hand of anyone who hefted it in battle, anyone who had fought and faced the worst in the gap of danger. This was not the first time it had been called to perform heroic feats. So it's a pretty awesome sword. All right, he lent that blade to the better swordsman. Unferth realized that Beowulf deserved to hold that sword and to fight with that sword. I'm going to skip that part. So he takes that sword with him. I think I'm going to skip this part. He's basically saying, I, Beowulf, am going to go after this monster. If I don't come back, I bid you well. I'm going to take this sword. Thank you for this sword. And just know that, hold on, comrades in arms, beloved Hrothgar, make sure you send the treasures that he gave to me to my people if I die. Okay, with these words, the prince of the Weathergeats was impatient to be away, and he plunged suddenly, without more ado. He dived into the heaving depths of the lake. It was the best part of the day before he could see the solid bottom. So when he dove into the water, it's saying that he had to swim almost a whole day before he got to the bottom. But remember, he has superhuman strength, so it doesn't really matter how long he has to swim. All right, so quickly, the one who haunted those waters, Grendel's mother, who had scavenged and gone her gluttonous rounds for 100 seasons, sensed a human observing her outlandish lair from above. So she lunged and clutched and managed to catch him in her brutal grip. But his body, for all that, remained unscathed. The mesh of the chainmail, so his armor, saved him on the outside. Her savage talons failed to rip the web of his war shirt. Then, once she touched bottom, that wolfish swimmer, Grendel's mother, carried the ring-mailed prince, Beowulf, to her court, so that, for all his courage, he could never use the weapons he carried. And the bewildering horde came at him from the depth. Droves. So all these animals. If you've ever seen Little Mermaid, Ursula, and she has these eels that are like her pets, and they attack Ariel, or they attack people. So it's kind of like that. Like Grendel's mother is the sea witch, and all of these beasts that swim in the lake, they listen to her, and they attack Beowulf. Okay, so. All right, the gallant man could see he had entered some hellish turnhole, and yet the water did not work against him, because the hall roofing held off the force of the current. Then he saw firelight. Oops, sorry, a gleam and a flare up, a glimmer of brightness. The hero observed that swamp thing from hell. He's talking about Grendel's mother again. The Tarn hag in all her terrible strength. Then heaved his war sword and swung his arm. The decorated blade came down ringing and singing on her head. But soon he found his battle torch extinguished. Okay, so he has tried to like cut off her head or slice her across the head, and when his sword touches her head, it starts to melt. Okay, the shining blade refused to bite. I think something melts. Hold on, I get there. All right, it spared her and felled the man in his need. All right, so it cannot pierce her skin. So she has these scales on her, and no regular sword can pierce her skin. That's what it was. Sorry. Okay. It had gone through many hand to hand fights, had hewed the armor and helmets of the doomed, but here at last, the fabulous powers of that heirloom failed. So I think that it's talking about the sword of Unferth. It failed. So it had been like this sword that had never been defeated in battle. Well, against Grendel's mother, it failed. All right. Hygelac's kinsman kept thinking, that's Beowulf, about his name and fame. He never lost heart. Then, in a fury, he flung his sword away. The keen inlaid, warm looped pattern steel was hurled to the ground. He would have to rely on the might of his arm. So he got rid of his sword. He's like, I'm just going to have to fight with my strength because, I'm strong. So must a man do who intends to gain enduring glory in combat. Life doesn't cost him a thought. The prince of the war geats, Beowulf, warming to this fight with Grendel's mother, gripped her shoulder and laid about him in a battle frenzy. He pitched his killer opponent to the floor, but she rose quickly and retaliated, grappled him tightly in her grim embrace. The sure-footed fighter felt daunted. Let me get back up here. Sorry. The sure-footed fighter felt daunted. The strongest of warriors stumbled and fell. Talking about Beowulf. Okay. So she pounced on him and pulled out a broad, whetted knife. Now she would avenge her only child. But the mesh of chainmail on Beowulf's shoulder shielded his life, turned the edge and tip of the blade. The son of Ectheo would have surely perished, and the Geats lost their warrior underneath the wide earth, had the strong links and locks of his war gear not helped to save him. Okay, so his armor protected him from the sword. It bent her sword actually, and then it says that holy God decided the victory. Okay, so we're going back to fate and this idea that you're not really in charge, that fate's in charge, and God decides. Okay, so holy God decided the victory. It was easy for the Lord, the ruler of heaven, to redress the balance once Beowulf got back on his feet. Then he saw a blade that boded well, a sword in her armory. So she, if you've ever seen Lord of the Rings and the dragon, and you think about the dragon's lair, and all the gold that the dragon has in his lair, well, she has a whole lot of gold and treasures and riches in her lair. And among that, he finds this sword. Okay, a sword in her armory, an ancient heirloom from the days of the giants, an ideal weapon, one that any warrior would envy. Okay. It was so huge and heavy of itself, only Beowulf could wield it in battle. If you think about Thor and how Thor is the only one strong enough and honorable enough to pick up his, oh my gosh, I just lost the word, his hammer. It's kind of like that. Like Beowulf is the only one strong enough to pick up that sword and wield it in battle. So the Shielding's hero, hard pressed and enraged, took a firm hold of the hilt and swung the blade in an arc. A resolute blow that bit deep into her neck bone and severed it entirely, toppling the doomed house of her flesh. She fell to the floor. The sword dripped blood. The swordsman was now elated. What did he do? He cut off her head. Okay. A light appeared. So we've got this dark, gloomy, beast infested lair underneath the water that had been bubbling and gurgling with blood. And as soon as he cuts off her head, light starts to appear. And my battery's going to die, so I'm going to have to plug it up. So I'm pausing. Hold on. Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry. Okay, so light appeared. I got to get there. The place brightened the way the sky does when heaven's candle is shining clearly. He inspected the vault, so everything where all the treasures are. With the sword held high, its hilt raised to guard and threaten, Hygelac's thane, that's Beowulf, scouted by the wall in Grendel's wake. Now the weapon was to prove its worth. The warrior determined to take revenge for every gross act Grendel had committed, and not only for that one act when he had come to slaughter the sleeping troops. 15 of Hrothgar's house guards surprised on their benches and ruthlessly devoured, and as many again carried away a brutal plunder. Okay, so he's going to seek revenge or to avenge Hrothgar and to seek revenge against Grendel, who has committed all of this murder and slaughter against Hrothgar's men. Beowulf, in his fury, now settled that score. He saw the monster in his resting place, a war-weary and wrecked, a lifeless corpse, a casualty of the battle in Heorot. The body gaped at the stroke dealt to it after death. Beowulf cut the corpse's head off. Okay, I need to say something for a minute. One reason that's really hard for me to read all of this is because of all the alliteration. Now, the alliteration, remember, that's like whenever one, let me see. All right, right here. War, weary, and wrecked. That's alliteration because it all starts with the same consonant. It makes it sound rhythmic and poetic, but it's also really hard to say. So anyway, just wanted to say that. So Beowulf cut off Grendel's head to avenge all that he did. So let's see. Everybody is at the top of the water looking and seeing whenever Beowulf's going to come back. And so they're all wondering, is Beowulf going to kill him? I just don't even know if he's going to make it. The 9th hour of the day had arrived. It says they wished without hope to behold their lord Beowulf himself. All right. While that's happening, they're all on top of the water. Down below, the sword. Remember, I said something about the sword melting. This is when that happens. The sword began to wilt into glory icicles, to slather and thaw. It was a wonderful thing, the way it all melted as ice melts when the Father eases the fetters off the frost and unravels the water ropes. He who wields power over time and tide, he is the true Lord. Basically, the sword melted, and the only thing is left is the handle or the hilt. All right. The gate captain saw treasure in abundance, but he carried nothing from those quarters except for the head and the hilt of the sword embossed with jewels. Its blade had melted, and the scroll work on it burned. So scalding was the blood of the poisonous fiend who had perished there. So the blood of Beowulf the blood of Grendel and Grendel's mother caused the sword to melt. So he took with him, when he left the lair, he took Grendel's head and he took the handle or the hilt of the sword as proof of what he's done there. All right, and so he swims back up to the top, and that's whenever, and he has to like fight back to the top. And it says, with high hearts, they headed away, and they all go back to tell Hrothgar what had happened. And that's where we're going to stop right now.